As an artist, it's so easy to beat yourself up about your creative progress, and realistically, it's not actually, necessary. And if anything, it's a burden on progressing creatively by beating yourself up about this. So, in this video, I've got a lot of tips and tricks that have helped me along my journey to actually, stop beating yourself up and in turn become more productive. Hey creators, Aimon here, and this is where I help you master your creative mindset. Let's get into it. So realistically, you're a normal, busy human being with a job, maybe a full-time job, friends and family that you obviously want to integrate into your schedule. You also have to eat and, clean yourself and your residence and, just general life admin, which is going to take up so much of your time. Oh, and sleep, obviously. So all of these different things are going to obviously limit the amount of time you have to actually create, okay? Especially in today's world, it's just so busy and everyone is just so busy. So it's really hard to find that time, And so that's the first thing, is that it's just like, take a step back and realize that you are a really busy person, And if you do want to make being an artist a full-time thing, then, that is going to take a progression. Okay, that is going to take time. And if you genuinely really want that, you are going to have to be very disciplined into how you fit this into your schedule. And so scheduling is the second thing. It's a really fantastic idea to have some kind of digital workstation, whether it's, Trello or Notion or even Google Calendar, right? Where it's like, 6:30 to 7:30 a.m. I wake up, this is what I do. And you do that for every hour of every day. More often than not, I just have my work day in one chunk. That's only 7 hours, right? And then from depending on when I get home from work, if it's 5 p.m. or if it's 7 p.m. on that day, in my calendar, it will be scheduled. I have to do 30 minutes of music production. I have to do 30 minutes of editing, and I have to do 30 minutes of marketing, right? And it's scheduled. And so what gets scheduled gets done, because there's no time in the day then where you're thinking about when am I going to fit this in, right? You just do everything that's on your calendar, right? And, I've got this down to like on Fridays, for example, I go shopping, I cook my meals for the next week, and I do a bit of, cleaning of the house and things like that. And that's all bunched into a 2 to 3 hour period on Fridays, right? And so I'm literally scheduling everything into my life. And then, Friday afternoons, I have an even larger amount of time, which I am allowed to create, right? And I sort of schedule that in. So, there's obviously going to be times where you don't necessarily want to do that. Or, you're hanging out with a friend that day. And that's totally fine. Like, you don't necessarily have to do that every single night. It's like, sorry, bro, we can't hang out. It's in my calendar that I'm going to be making music tonight. So, you don't have to be like crazy about it, but it's there. And, when you do have time where you do get home, you're like, oh, well, this is obviously what I should be doing right now. Rather than going on Netflix, scrolling on Reddit, playing Call of Duty. I mean, who even does that anymore anyway? So the third thing for me is to actually, lower your expectations of each individual session. Like the previous video, I was just talking about expectations, and it's great to have high expectations, right? But when you go into a session, if you're like, I want to get this song done, I want to complete this video, but you've only scheduled 30 minutes or an hour to do it, or it's a Wednesday night and it's 8 p.m. you don't really feel like doing that, it's going to be way easier to just tap out and not do it at all, rather than setting one small specific goal and treating that as a win, right? So for example, I'm working on a track right now, and my goal last night, I just want to make this one synth really beefy, right? I want to make it sound fat as and fit into the mix really well. If you're a music producer, you know what I'm talking about. If you're, a videographer, then you're like, all right, I just want to finish this one section of B-roll, not even color grade it, just edit it together so it looks cool, right? And then you have this low expectation of what you need to achieve in that one session. And so it makes the barrier to entry for that creative session really low. So in your mind, it's way easier to be like, oh, it's all good. That's all I have to do. I'll get into it. So it's easy to actually start doing that task. And then it's also easier to finish that task. And then you actually feel accomplished. And then when you do this several days in a row, you have this momentum, which is unstoppable. And the other hidden benefit of that is that when you actually go into that session, right? And, you do make that synth beefy as, you do make that, B-roll edit really sick. You end up moving on to the color grade anyway, because you're in this bit of a flow state. You're like, oh, I've just done the thing that I set out to do, So then you just start color grading it, and all of a sudden you've done an hour and a half's work in 45 minutes, and you've smashed the goal. You've done way more than you actually set out to do. So this has been huge for me because, you know, you just set a small goal, a realistic goal every session, and then you smash it out of the park and you end up doing way more. And it feels so good. So yeah, when you have a huge barrier to entry, you know, you're just not going to tackle that task. You're not going to want to do it because your mind perceives it as huge. So you break down those steps and say, I want to achieve step 1 and step 2 out of the 10 steps, you're just going to achieve so much more. The absolute biggest thing for me over the last year or so has been to work on particular projects. So for example, you know, I produce music, obviously, and, you know, for 10 years now, essentially. And as I said, like, it's so easy to just be like, oh, I produce music. So what does a music producer do? They produce. So you sit down, you don't have a specific goal, and you're just mucking around, right? And you get things done that way, especially, again, if you have a clear vision of the future, you get things done, right? But last year, at the start of the year, I set myself a goal to create an album, a 10-track album. And because I was like, this is the creative limitation that I'm applying to myself, this is what I am working on right now, it was so easy because, you know, every time I rocked up to produce, it's like, oh, well, what am I doing right now? Oh, well, I'm working on one of these 10 songs and I have to get them all to completion so that I can finish this album. So that's what I mean by working on a project. And so that was my first album, right? And that took me 7 or 8 months to write and complete. And I was just so focused on that because every time I arrived to produce, you know, it's scheduled in my calendar, rock up. It's so easy to know exactly what I'm doing. And then again, back on the steps thing, you just break it down as in like, okay, well, I'm going to work on this part of this song tonight only, you know? And you're not just like, oh, I should shoot a video. I should, you know, make some music. You don't really know what you're doing. There's no like exact clear goal that you're working on, you know? And so in that respect, I know that I'm making progress towards my goal and therefore my larger goals every single session. And isn't that the point, that you want to be making progress, you know? And so this could be the same as, you know, again, if you're a producer, you just say, I'm making a single right now and one single only, you know? But yeah, in the past, I would just like have several projects going at once. And it's like, what do I feel like working on? No, maybe I feel like making something new, and you make something new and you hate the idea and you put it down and you watch Netflix, you know? But it's like, okay, well, maybe I don't really want to do the last 10% of this song right now, but I've got this album and I've got a release date, so I kind of have to do that, you know? So it's easy to know what to work on, you know? And so since then, I've created and completed another album in the last 4 months, you know? And so I'm definitely done with albums for a bit. I'm going to go back to singles now. But it's been a fantastic learning experience in that I know that when you set a large project goal and you work on that one thing, then yeah, it's a creative limitation, you know, and you're going to get it done because it's very clear what to work on. And so if you're doing all of these things, you know, I find it way easier to stop beating myself up about my creative progress, you know, because, you know, if things are scheduled, right? If you're making small progress in every single session, if you have clear, large goals that you're working towards, you know, and if it's all scheduled in your calendar to do that, then you're going to feel like you're making more creative progress on a session to session basis, you know, and that is going to build momentum and build this flow state. And it's going to be way easier to, you know, grow exponentially in your craft, you know, get those hours in, you know, just like get your technical progress up and become a better artist in doing so, regardless of if you're into video or music production or whatever it is. And ultimately, you're going to achieve your goals sooner. So, you know, these are some of the things that have really helped me, especially over the last year and, you know, through the whole pandemic thing. It was easy to lose sight of your goals. And, you know, especially if you're spending more time, you know, at home in an environment where you can create, you're not having varied experiences to draw creative inspiration from, then it's easy to just lose your goals, you know, lose sight of what it is you're doing. And then you just stop doing it for a while until something punches you in the face and goes, hey, why aren't I doing that thing that I love? Well, you could have been doing it the whole time. You just need to put some things in place to ensure that it's easier for you to do that, you know? So hopefully these tips and thoughts have been of value to you. If they have been, let me know in the comments, or let me know any tips that I've missed that you have figured out on your creative journey. You know, if you dig it, feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.